Okay guys, so I played a 2400 point game of Warhammer Fantasy the other day. I hosted it at my house against a guy called Mike from Colchester. I first met Mike at a tournament at the 40k shop that they ran, and the first match that we had was with my orcs at the time, and I did terribly in that tournament, but either way. So he's popped over to mine for a game. In warm-up sort of preparation, we've got a small tournament at the end of the month. He's also planning a bit of a campaign which works towards a tournament in April. Mike has got a very heavily armoured list, so going into the game with plenty of direct damage spells, I've got a metal mage and I've got 3 bolt throwers, so I'm thinking I've got the tools to deal with his army, really. So see how it goes. So the first picture here is the spells that I've got on my level 4. I've got Soul Quench, Drain Magic, Arcane Unforging and Fiery Convocation. I did roll Tempest, and I did roll double 4, so I had Tempest twice, so I actually switched them both out for the signatures. And then onto my level 2 Metal Mage, I've got Searing Doom and Plague of Rust. I did get Final Transmutation, I think, and I swapped that for Searing Doom, so I've got a direct damage spell to go against his heavy armour, and also if I get bogged in combat with it, I've got Plague of Rust, so I can hopefully get his armour save down a little bit. So this is an overall shot of the deployment. I was happy all the way through deployment, a lot of chaff going down on one side, and I was left with him having finished his deployment. I still had my 3 big blocks to go down. But I was totally caught out, to be honest, by the captain on the Pegasus that you can see in the near side of the shot. But basically, being a flyer, I realised that I had to get some protection over here for my bolt throwers, and I sort of deployed a lot of my stuff then to the left, so I really had split my force, and he kept a nice line. He did actually reveal to me afterwards that this is basically how he'd been deploying lately, so it's almost, you know, a predetermined deployment. Whereas I was reacting to him, and I really need to think about how I want my centre down, what chaff is and isn't dispensable to go down to lure out his units. You know, I mean, I'm always deploying in counter to people. I don't seem to really have my own game plan set up from the start of this game. So deployment for me, from my left to right, I've got 3 bolt throwers on the hill. I've got the Reavers in front, and then the Swordmasters to the right of those. The Phoenix Guards unit to the right of that, and that's got my level 2 and my level 4 in that unit, and that actual unit has the Lichbone Pennant. And I've got my Silver Helms to the right of those, with a mounted BSB with Banner of the World Dragon. And then on my right hand side I've got an eagle. In front of the eagle I've got 15 archers with musician. Then I've got another eagle over to the right a bit more, and some Illyrian Reavers, and sitting behind the Reavers I've got my Phoenix. And the Phoenix is basically deployed with that building blocking line of sight to him to protect from the cannons, and basically reacting to where he put his cannon and where he put his steam tank effectively. On his deployment, from my right to my left, he's got 5 knights, then he's got 4 demigryphs, a steam tank, and then he's got 10 archers, I think it is, on the edge of the forest there, with his level 4, and then he's got a big bus of knights, not sure how many, possibly about 12 guys in there, but he's also got 3 characters in the front rank, and he's got a mage in the second rank, and then he's got 5 knights. Behind those he's got a cannon up on the hill, and then he's got his captain on Pegasus. So he got the first turn. I've done some small vanguards here at this stage, but I really didn't want to commit me Reavers up too much, because he'd pretty much covered all his line of sight. You know, there's nowhere I'm really going to be zipping up fast, so I was a bit cautious with those guys. His knights just sort of pivoted. They didn't want to end up getting charged by the Phoenix or anything like that, over committing themselves, and the demigryphs come up a little bit, pivoting over. They're obviously going to funnel through that gap there. The steam tank generated 4 steam points and moved towards the archers, 3d6 inches. And then over on the other flank, the night bus moves up. Again, he's being relatively cautious. He's setting himself up to charge me, as opposed to the other way around, because obviously I've got my movement 9 silver helms there. and his archers have moved right into the forest now, and the captain on the Pegasus moved right up in front of my Illyrian Reavers. In the magic phase, he went for Dwellers, which I scrolled, and then he went for Throne of Vines, which I was able to dispel on dice quite comfortably. The steam tank used one steam point to shoot over here at the eagle. He killed 2 archers and took a wound off the eagle. So, High Elf turn 1, both my eagles jump over the building going toward the mage's unit, and my Frost Phoenix moves up to protect the archers as the steam tank is going to go for them, and looking at a counter charge there. My Reavers move up to protect the rear of the Phoenix and to keep the Knights and the Demigryphs busy, possibly for a turn. On the left, my Swordmasters went for a flank charge at the Pegasus captain, just to try and tie him up and keep him busy. Who knows, might land a wound or 2 on him, but I failed and only moved 4 inches. My lines reform up to protect the Phoenix Guard unit, and so I've got my Illyrian Reavers moved up there for a redirect. I failed my leadership check on those guys, so they could only move, they couldn't perform a march. And in the magic phase, I made poor decisions with what little power dice I had. Basically, I went for Arcane Unforging on the captain, where I didn't wound, but I got rid of his Dawnstone, which was quite nice. And I then went for Searing Doom on the knights, but it failed to cast. And then in the shooting phase, the archers managed to take a wound off the steam tank, which was pretty fortunate. And in other shooting, the bolt throwers hit the captain on Pegasus. He discounted the first hit with Charmed Shield, I believe, and then the second failed to cause a wound. On to Empire turn 2, and he charges his Knight bus at my Helm bus, and I flee, and this shows the 5, 5 and 6 that I rolled with Swift Stride. It's pretty risky because I was actually 12 inches from the edge of the board, so another inch and I'd have actually been off the board. I keep doing this lately with my Silver Helms, that I don't really get them into a great position, and I end up using them, you know, pretty much as units which are just going to get in the way and then flee, and it's a big bus to spend a lot of points on doing that. You know, I mean, I could probably split the bus down a bit and get some more Reavers for that job and have a unit which is still going to have a bit of punch on the charge. So that's something I need to look at towards in my list building. And the next picture shows their position after they've fled, and then he redirects into the Reavers, who flee through the Swordmasters, but they don't panic. The captain charges a bolt thrower, and then over on the other side, the Knights had charged the Reavers, who held, and the Demigryphs just reformed up. And the Mage has moved out of his Archer bunker to get a little bit of distance between him and the Eagles, I'm guessing. And in his steam tank then tried to generate 4 more steam points, misfires, lost all his points but didn't take any wounds. And in his magic phase, he goes for a Throne of Vines on the Mage, which goes through, and then he goes for Flesh to Stone on the Mage, but I stopped that. In the shooting phase, the unwounded eagle is taken out by the cannon, and the archers get another wound on the other eagle, so the other eagle's down to his last wound. And then in combat, the picture that you see here actually shows the triple ones there, which is his armor saves for the knights that are against my Illyrian Reavers. They just went to town and literally killed 3 guys, as you can see on there. And he ended up killing 2 guys back, obviously with his charge and my 3 kills. Both got musician, so we it ends up just being a push. And then the captain obviously takes out the bolt thrower quite comfortably, but at this point on this picture it shows he didn't realise that he hadn't set up his overrun angle correctly, so he's not going to be at all, so he's not actually going to be getting into the next bolt thrower. And this picture shows him reformed up, ready to face. So it's High Elf turn 2, and the eagle charges into the Mage over there, and he holds. And then basically on my lines, my Swordmasters reform to face back towards where the sort of battle's going on. My Illyrian Reavers rally and they move up to get in the way. My Phoenix Guard pivot round a little bit, and the Silver Helms also rally. In the magic phase, I go for Arcane Unforging again on the captain, and again I've not got a wound, and I've stripped off all his magic items now. And then I hit him with Searing Doom from the Metal Mage, killing him outright. And in the shooting phase, the bolt throwers shoot at the knights. They hit the knights, but I only kill 2. I literally penetrate the rank with the first shots, and then just fails to kill the next rank. In the combat with the Reavers, I kill another knight, and he doesn't manage to kill any of my Illyrian Reavers back, so I've actually won combat by 1, but he sticks. And then against his mage, I do 1 wound to his mage, he does nothing back to me, and he sticks in combat there as well. Onto his movement phase, the steam tank has misfired again, and it was the same result as before. And the knights over on the left hand side, not shown in the picture, but they charged at the Reavers that were in their path, and the Reavers held because here I'm just giving him an overrun, which would mean he's going to get flanked by the Sword Masters and possibly anything else that I need to stick in there. The demis have moved up over on this side, but they're actually blocked by that steam tank. And in the magic phase, he throws his dice at Flesh to Stone on the mage, and he actually gets it off. I'm not able to dispel that. And then he shoots his cannon at my bolt thrower, and that's just showing where it basically stopped a couple of inches short. Now the Night Bus has killed the Reavers, and he just elects to reform instead of overrun. And then over here in this combat, I've dealt 1 wound to him, and he doesn't wound me back again on the Eagle. Bit of confusion with the dice. Previously he was showing wounds left, he's now showing wounds taken, because obviously when he cast the Law of Life spell, it had buffed him back up by 1 wound, putting him back onto full health before. So now he's down to 2 wounds again. And then on to High Elf turn 3. I've moved my Phoenix over towards the more towards this side of the board, and I've charged my Sword Masters into the flank of the Knights, and I've also moved my Metal Mage out, which is doing 2 things. It's giving me line of sight to the steam tank because that was blocked by the hill, and it's also providing a situation whereby if he takes out my Sword Masters, his only option next turn is to then charge the mage, and I've set up his overrun path, so it should be aiming towards the Phoenix Guard, but they're quite far away, so he's going to need like double 6s or a 5 and a 6 or something to get in. So in the magic phase, I try Plague of Rust on the Knights first, because obviously they're in combat with the Sword Master there, so anything I can do to get rid of their armor save is a bonus. And but he dispels that, getting a double 6 on the dice that he threw at it. And then I do Searing Doom onto the steam tank, dealing a couple of wounds. And in the shooting phase, my bolt throwers multi-shot the knights that were on the left to his big bus, and I kill 3 of those, and the remaining 2 panic and run away. He rolled a 10, and then he re-rolled because of BSB, getting a 10 again. And in the fight with the Reavers, that just carries on as it was. It's just a push, because basically he's doing nothing to me, I'm doing nothing to him, and no one's running away. So in combat with the Sword Masters, he kills a few with his Lord, and I think maybe 1 or 2 were also killed from the unit, and he wins combat. I stick, and he reforms to face me. And over with his mage, my Eagle finishes off his mage, dealing 1 more wound, and I finished him off with a stomp. And now his steam tank finally gets going. He generates 4 steam points, moves over towards the main battle line here, and his 2 fleeing knights rally. He also charges his demigryphs into the rear of the Eagle, and he then in the magic phase he goes for the re-rolls to wound and the regeneration on his bus. And the cannon up on the hill in the shooting phase misfired, so it can't shoot this turn or next. And then the steam tank unloads and shoots down the mage. And in combat I basically do nothing to his bus, and he then just goes ahead and wipes out the unit, doing another 3 or 4 wounds with his character that's in the unit, who's got like a sword that basically you get no armor saves against him. Whatever he hits is a wound, all that sort of thing. So, and then the unit just finishes off the last guy, the standard bearer, or it might be the warrior priest actually that finished him off. And he basically reforms the bus back to face me. So into my turn, I'm now looking at it, I'm backed into a corner, I haven't got enough mobility to get out of the way. The only other option I could have here could possibly be to redirect with the Phoenix, but then I'm running the risk of him electing not to charge the Phoenix, and because he wouldn't want to get locked in combat or anything silly, and ending up just hitting me with a couple of cannons or whatever. So I elect to charge with everything, and the idea here is to get the Phoenix in there, just to give him all strikes last, because he's got an initiative 6 character in there, so if I'm going to beat on him I can still get my rerolls. I want to get my silver helms in there for the strength 5 punch, because I obviously want to charge rather than be charged, get me noble into combat. And then also the aim of the Phoenix Guard is just to be the last guys that I move in, get them up there on one literally corner to corner flank, and just keep that steadfast so that I'm not going to run away. So I like to charge with all 3. I'm pretty much automatically in with the Phoenix. The silver helms I think needed a 9, and the Phoenix Guard may have needed an 8. But as you see from this picture, unfortunately I got in with the silver helms and the Phoenix, and the Phoenix Guard failed to get out of the combat. So I'm just sitting there with those guys. So now my worry is, because the silver helms are sat in combat and they're killable from his point of view, I'm now leaving myself vulnerable to losing my ranks and subsequently not being steadfast anymore. So the bolt throwers up on the hill shoot at the steam tank, and I do a couple of wounds to the steam tank. And then in this combat, with all of my attacks, so we're basically looking at I've got what 11 strength 5 attacks, hitting onto the unit, hitting on 3s, re-rolling, and then they'll be wounded on 2s, and he's looking at what a 3+ armor save and a 5+ regeneration save, and I kill 1. Then obviously my noble attacks, and it's basically the same scenario. He's got good chances, or relatively good chances of landing something and nothing. And the Phoenix goes as well, who's going to be looking at 4 attacks, strength 6, and basically he does nothing. So as you can see from this combat, I've killed 1 knight from all of that. And he attacks back first with his lord, who cuts down my BSB. And at this point, it wasn't until after, well, not at this point, it wasn't until after the game that I realised that I'd forgotten the BSB carrying the banner of the World Dragon. So obviously I had 2 upward saves against all of his attacks from that character. So I had forgot about that, but whether it would have made too much difference to the combat, I don't know. And then he went ahead and cut down another 4 silver helms, so I'm no longer steadfast, and I'm looking at, I believe it was a 5, and obviously I've not got the reroll because the BSB's gone. And you can see from this picture that both my units broke. They both actually got run down. None of them were fortunate enough to get away, because he rolled very high. I think it may have been a 10 or 11, and he's straight into that Phoenix Guard unit. And on his turn he moves the steam tank a little bit more, and moving his knights around a little bit more, and then basically in the combat here with the Phoenix Guard, I end up killing 3 knights, so the Phoenix Guard do a pretty good job with that, but he kills 4 Phoenix Guard, and he also gets my Archmage General, and really that's the game. I mean, the Phoenix Guard did flee and were run down, and just for reference, the Reavers and the Lone Knight just sat there stalemate all game long. So that's pretty much how the game ended there. So overall, it was a good game. Mike's always a great opponent to play against. You can always guarantee a fun game. Even if you did come to my house, eat all my food, drink all my water, and then subsequently table me, he's still a great opponent. So what I've learned from the game, I really didn't have a game plan from the get-go, and I think that was one of my biggest drawbacks. I was reacting to him too often, and not really getting the units in places I wanted them to be, really, and too worried about protecting my war machines. Not really sure why I chucked them right over on the left. I think it may have been when the steam tank and the demis went down. I wanted something far away from them that I could just shoot across the battlefield, a flank at the demis to go through those guys, and and hitting the steam tank. The captain on the Pegasus was genuinely a surprise to me. I know he's run it before against me Orcs, but I was sort of surprised. So I spent so much time concentrating on him in the end, and he wasn't really worth it. He wasn't worth the points that I spent chucking various spells at him. I should have just let him eat through my bolt throwers, because I think I would have got more value out of the Metal Mage card, 6 dice in Searing Doom, or getting some Plagues of Rust on that Night Bus to make them more killable in combat, than the time I spent Arcane Unforging his guy on the Pegasus, really. So I think I picked the right spells at the start of the game, but I did lack power dice to use them occasionally, but it wasn't massively overwhelming the whole game with regards to magic. I mean, I think generally Mike had more dice than me, but ultimately his mage was pretty much shut down early on. So with regards to my list, I think there's 2 glaring holes in the list. The Swordmasters, for starters, 10 of those guys with a flaming banner, they don't really have a lot to do in most games. I mean, they are there that if there happens to be a big unit of trolls or something, I can get in there and cut down a few with my high initiative flaming attacks at strength 5. But really, I don't really think they're bringing an awful lot to most games. I'm pretty much using them as chaff. I'm getting up there, getting in units' way, or I'm flank charging things to keep them tied up for a turn. And so I never really seem to get that much value out of them. So I mean, there's 160 points that I can either chuck into something else, or I need to reduce some other things to bolster up that unit, I think. I never seem to use my Night Bus very well. I think on paper it's very good. It doesn't necessarily need to be split, but I think I need to start using it properly. So there's something to look at there. And as far as the good points in my list, as ever, the Book of Hoth was pretty good. Where I did have little magic dice, I always had that opportunity to re-roll one to make sure that he couldn't dispel some of the things here and there. Only the double 6s that really got me on the dispelling. And at the moment, the Banner of the World Dragon hasn't really come into play much on any of my games. And the time that I did need it this game, I had actually forgotten about it. So what can you do there, really? With regards to my level 2, I'm probably going to bump him down to a level 1, because I only really need him there for Searing Doom. But on this occasion, in some games, that second spell does come in handy. I mean, Enchanted Blades is always a nice one to get, and as is Plague of Rust if you're going up against this sort of army, and you get your spell prioritization correct and you actually get the ones off you want, it can be pretty handy. But I'm not sure on his build of magic items. I give him a Dispel Scroll and Kane's Ring. So the idea is that if I bunker him up with the Phoenix Guard and I end up putting my Archmage in the Archers, I can get a Kane's Ring off and get a cheap 3+ ward save. The downside is Kane's Ring's an 18-inch range, and so I find more often than not, the way that I'm playing this list, I tend to be out of range for Soul Quenches anyway. So not 100% on that really. And I'd like to ideally bring the Razor Standard back to the Phoenix Guard at some point. So I'll probably run the same list with some minor changes in the tournament on 25th of January and see how it goes. Then I'll make my adjustments for the the tournaments coming up. The only big change I may make for the 25th is dropping the Swordmasters and for either bolstering up the Phoenix Guard into a hefty anvil, or looking at adding some more archers perhaps to the army. So that's the game, and it was a 20-0 loss, obviously, but a really enjoyable game, and yeah, it was great. So on to the next battle report.